attention or just needed someone to talk to and share something that's going on in their lives, get that information. As I have said before, that, Las Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world. This is not entertainment. And so that being said, we need to focus on what is going on in our community. What are the needs? Why is this happening? Why have we been number one for 5 years in a row across the nation? What is it that's happening here that our numbers continue to stay at this level and not necessarily decreasing? And we really need to take a look at that. So we really want to make sure we educate people from all levels across the lifespan. That's why I like to include teens as well as our chronologically advanced group and everybody in between. And domestic violence is not in our DNA, and it has no color, no age, nothing in particular. It doesn't relate to your education or your socioeconomic status, your religious affiliation, nothing. It just has no eyes for any of that. So we just need to take all of that into consideration when we're reaching out to the community, getting as much information out there, letting folks know where the resources are, giving them a chance to express anything related to domestic violence that they need to, because they can share their stories and give someone else hope as to how they can get help if that's the position that they're in.
That is it. Making sure that we get the information out. And that's part of the reason we do the show. There are times where we do, crazy shows or we talk about crazy politics, but then you got to get to the point where, folks are suffering. And sometimes right in front of us, and we don't even know, people right next to us, friends of ours who are going through certain things. So getting this information out and is important. Getting the phone numbers, the websites, all of that stuff, and you folks over there in the Nevada area, in Vegas area, you've got Dr. Wakefield. I got to find out who we got here in the Greensboro area, but I'm sure there are folks all around. As they hear this, they'll probably call me or tell me, say, "Man, don't you know?" So. But this is all. It's one of the topics you don't like to hear about, but you got to talk about it because folks have to be aware that they're not alone out there, and that there are places that can, where they can receive help. And
let me add another thought about this as well, because this is not something that we talk about very often. Because we may just center on the different forms of it, whether it's financial abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, whatever. But we also don't think about how it impacts us physically. There are statistics out there about domestic violence that point toward how it impacts people who have, for example, heart disease or stroke or diabetes. And so we can look at the statistics in the health information and say, you know what, domestic violence is not only about these abusive situations, but also this can cause some serious health issues to us as well. So we need to take that into consideration when we're thinking about all the other the things that are coming about, or someone who has PTSD or some other kinds of issues or some mental health issues that are going on. All of these kinds of things can be impacted as it relates to domestic violence. So we can't just look at it as an isolated kind of thing. It's so comprehensive. There's so many things to take a look at to make sure that we are covering our bases. And that's why when I have asked people who are resources in our community, that's why I want to make sure that we have even brochures on specific health, on different health issues, because we know that it impacts people in those areas as well.
Right. Yeah, that was a you touched on something that was a question that Pat had sent a question in that, and you touched right on it. She was like, what does the pandemic do to our mental health, and does this contribute to domestic violence? So, I mean, all of these, you're right, all of these things are kind of tied in together. Each one kind of impacts the other, and it's definitely each situation alone is enough, but to have one compounding the other is just adds insult to injury. Chief.
Yes, sir.
Are you there, Chief?
Yes, sir.
One
I am here.
Thing I want to add, though, too, because when we were talking about domestic violence earlier, we have to understand parents are really stressed with having to teach their kids right now, too. So that's another issue that could really lead to, not necessarily, I don't want to say, school closing is necessarily a domestic violence factor.
Are you saying that
some of the attitudes can lead to that, I mean, I'm sure these parents are pretty stressed out with some of that.
So, Doc, are you saying there's a lot of tail whipping going on right now?
I don't know. I won't be the first to admit that, but I'm sure there's some interesting things. Right. Spare the rod, spoil the child. I think we may not be sparing it right now.
So right now there's some child in front of his computer and hearing this sound. Is that what you're saying, Doc?
We don't want them necessarily yelling abuse, child abuse here. But I'm sure that parents are seeing a different view of their children right now, and that might be very interesting and challenging for them. I can say that.
Well, I'm sure that the parents are finding out that the teacher wasn't too far off base when they said that your child is a pain in the you-know-what.
And I think, too, that if parents are having to deal with all the other things for survival, I mean, parents have been in survival for a long time, but it's a lot different being in survival at this point when you've got something that could take your life from you if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and not taking the precautions that you need to take to get through this pandemic. So it has certainly caused us to be very cautious and careful on all fronts.
Wow. And I really didn't think about the young people per se when we were talking about this topic, but I wonder just in terms of, siblings getting along with each other and those types of things, is that part of that whole increase in domestic violence? Because now, all 5 of the kids are home and everyone's trying to struggle to get on the computer. The internet's not working. It's 171 degrees outside. And when you put all that together, is that also creating some challenges for families?
Absolutely. And I'm hungry and I want to eat right now and I don't want that. I want this. And oh yeah, I mean, Mom, I don't like that. Why do I have to eat that today? Why do I have to do this today? I have to take out the trash today. No, why do I have to do it? I did it yesterday. Why do I have to do it? Oh, all of this could just be, we just have to rethink everything. The chore list may have to be revamped, and the meals have to be revamped, and we may be eating leftovers for the next 3 days. And, there's so many things to it. Yes. And the siblings may not be getting along because they're a little agitated, but it's almost back to what the gentleman Phil was saying about parents. And I said, they are our first teacher. Our kids can sense that agitation of parents too, which also means that sometimes that agitation flows over into our children. And causes them to be a little agitated with each other as well. And so maybe they're not as kind as they shoulda, coulda, woulda. And so they're not, they may not want to share their toys or markers or pencils or whatever. So all these kinds of things are going on in the meantime, and you're trying to keep them engaged in their schoolwork when there's all these other challenges. There's just a myriad of challenges to deal with to get through this. And so giving people a sense of hope in any form is just something more than can handle right now. But if I can be of any service at all, and Delta Sigma Theta sorority and the kinds of things that we're trying to do to support our community, we're there. We are absolutely there on the forefront to say, what can we do, not only with domestic violence, but our other programs that we have going on. We certainly want to be a part of what we can do on this right now and on the other side of the pandemic that will bring a sense of hope and encouragement and advocacy and all the other things that we need to do to help us get through this difficult time.
And Dr. Wakefield, would you mind giving your contact information for those that may be interested in finding out more about STOMP or some of the other things that you're doing surrounding domestic violence?
It probably will be easier to email me, and
Okay.
I don't know, and that's what I'm thinking. It's easiest because if you and I can, and I'm real easy to find because if you wake up in a field, okay, so it's Wake, WAKE, FIMA, F as in Frank. It's Wakefema @gmail.com, and I'm Dr. Marie Wakefield. And I would love to hear from you. Wakefema, wake up, Wakefema @gmail.com.
Gotcha. And one of the other things that was creating some stress for a lot of parents was struggling through the new way they're teaching algebra and geometry. And I understand those things were creating a lot of stress. I know Thin Bad was a little concerned about that a couple of weeks ago. And I remember when we started the show, he had his daughter in a chokehold. So,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
I just remember we started the show out like this. And I was like, what's going on? And he said, he was trying to get his daughter straight with her geometry. So, it's just been one of those things.
Yeah, one of those days. Absolutely.
But,
hope, a brighter day is coming. We know it's coming. So we look forward to the other side of this pandemic, but do all that we can to stay as safe as we can, to stay as focused as we can, and just understand that it won't be like this forever.
Oh, absolutely. And Dr. Wakefield, again, we really thank you for being here this evening. We really got a lot out of what you had to talk to us about. You shared some incredible tips about documents and things that you should have in case you are unfortunately involved in a domestic violence situation. And I'm glad that you also talked about this is a phenomena that not just impacts women, but it impacts men and children. And I'm just glad to hear you not lumping one group of people into a category and saying this is the only group that's impacted by this, because clearly women, men, children, everyone is under stress. Everyone is concerned about their health right now, and all of the related stress type things that can make people do things that they normally wouldn't do, or those individuals that haven't quite grasped the concept of behaving themselves and diffusing themselves and those types of things. So it's just a real hodgepodge of things that are going on in the middle of this COVID situation. But we're just glad that there are people like you out there that are on the forefront, and that you have the support of your sorority to offer information to citizens, not just in Las Vegas, but citizens across the country and across the world. So once again, we thank you for being here. We certainly hope that you will join us again in the future, and hopefully
I can tell you that we'll have some things going on. So I will look forward to sharing with you again in the future, because Delta are planning some things that will be on Facebook and YouTube that will be very encouraging and uplifting.
Fantastic. And we look forward to it. And we look forward to having you back. And Thin Bad, thank you, sir, for bringing us your perspectives and all the things that you bring.
Questions, that's what I bring. And we had answers tonight. So that was good, Dr. Wakefield. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Dr. Wakefield. Thank you. And we thank our listeners for supporting us and for tuning in every week. But most importantly, we just thank you for allowing us to give it to you straight. No chaser. Bye. You've been listening